All right, and it looks like we are live. So, good afternoon. Welcome to the ICT2641 Assignment 1 review session live stream. My name is Brandon Fick, and I am the E-Tutor for this module. And the purpose of this stream is to go over essentially how to approach Assignment 1 with respect to, how to go into Assignment 2 and how to do well with it. I'm not going to go over the memo, mostly because it's really long and I don't think we'll be able to cover all of the questions in the session since there's 49 of them. But the purpose, just by the way, you can ask questions in the live chat, and I do have the WhatsApp group open in front of me. And any questions that I see, I will get to as we go along. But this will essentially serve as just a review, sort of, a review session with emphasis on what students might have made mistakes with and how you can use the memo to further your understanding of the module and prepare for the exam. Yes, so I'm intending to keep today's session very short. As I'm sure you're aware, everybody has just, been notified that we have stage 6 load shedding. So I might actually get hit in the middle of the session, so I want to get as much done as I possibly can. So, all right, let's get to it. Okay, so assignment 1 was last month, as I'm sure you're aware. This is your MyUnisa for this module, ICT2641. You wanted assignment 1, you come down here to assignment 1, right? There was about 200 people who have submitted, I believe. And so I assume that everybody's familiar with this. I'm just doing this just to show you where you can find the memo for this assignment and how you can do. Some people say that they had problems finding the assignment, so I'm just going through this just in case. So for assignment 2, this is the main page, the welcome page of your My Module site. You're going to come down here, and then you're going to go to assignment 2. Now this will be available. It says, let me just increase the zoom so you can see. This quiz will not be available until Monday, the 11th of July, 8 a.m., and it will close on Monday, the 18th of July at 11 p.m. I'm emphasizing the times because the 11th is when? Next month? 2 weeks, just about. I'm emphasizing the date because there was a little bit of problem with students who said they assumed that assignment 1 was going to close at midnight. And there was actually an announcement made on the Sunday, I believe. Here it is. Compulsory assignment closing. Assignment 1, 30 May at 4. This is right here. Please, I got so many emails about students saying, no, I assumed that the time was midnight. I thought it was going to be. This announcement is right here. Please don't send me emails saying otherwise, please. This was made on Sunday the 29th, so the day before. As lecturing staff, we expect you to be on the ball on these announcements. It's one of the key things. This is how we communicate to you. So if you don't look at this and then you claim that you didn't know, it's out of our hands. It's not a valid excuse. So please, if this happened to you with the previous assignment, please look at the time. The time right now says 11 p.m., but things can change. This is why you need to keep tabs on the announcements. Please, I really need to emphasize this. Yes. Okay. So back to the main page for this module. To find the memo, another announcement was made on this, by the way. But to find the memo, you come and you scroll all the way down here and you go to additional resources. Alternatively, you could open the side tab and go down to additional resources. And then this is the memo. It's called ICT2641 2010-2022, which is tutorial letter 201 code. But when you download this and you open it, you will be met with the memo for assignment 1. And okay, before we go into assignment 1, like I said, I'm not going to go through the memo. There's not enough time to get through 49 questions, and the memo should be sufficient in terms of self-study, because all of the questions in assignment 1 were 1 to 2 marks. I believe they were all actually just 2 marks. So 49 questions, 2 marks. You had 7 days to get through this, just about. I mean, the 7-day period was what you had in May last month. And each chapter had 7 questions that popped up in the assignment 1. But the way they made this tricky was, and also to prevent students copying, plagiarizing, helping each other during the assignment, was the question order did not correspond to the chapters in the textbook. For example, I'm reasonably sure everybody got, I don't know if everybody got the same 49 questions. I assume so. I wasn't made aware of this, but the order that everybody got the questions was not the same. So this made answering the questions, taking it a one step further, very similar to how this would be poised in an exam. Did I emphasize that enough? So, just to say that again without innuendo, this is very close to how an exam will be presented to you in, the end of India module and whatever. So once again, to further emphasize, just take this assignment. If you didn't do assignment 1, you felt like you didn't do it to the best of your ability, you felt like you didn't have time or whatever. Assignment 2 is a very good chance to prep for exam, because this is essentially a mock exam the way that it is. At least like from my perspective, the way the questions are laid out, the way the answers were poised to you, the way they have the model answer in the memo, the way they cover every single chapter and, specific details of each chapter. And especially that when answering the assignment, you didn't necessarily know which question was referring to which chapter. This is very much exam protocols right here. I'll get to that a little bit more later on as we approach on the stream. All right. So the difficulty was understanding which chapters or which content each question was talking about. So this, like I suppose on the student's end, this was made to trip you up in the sense that if you weren't keeping up to date with the textbook, like we have a study schedule, right? If you weren't keeping up to this and you went into the assignment without ever opening the textbook, you just thought, okay, I'm going to look at the questions, look at the keywords, read up on the textbook, and then answer the questions. I mean, if that was your approach to this, you probably felt like you didn't have enough time. It was made like that on purpose, by the way. This wasn't the lecturer being mean. This is how we get you to actually sit down and learn things in the module. Yes. So just look at a few questions. Like I said, there's 49 of these questions. And while I do recommend that you go through all of them, I'm going to once again emphasize that we don't have enough time to go through all 49. But they are pretty straightforward questions, most of them. And okay, I just have like a little bit of notes that I've written out here, things that I need to cover as I go along. The next one says, talking about how to answer the questions. Now, I already said that you didn't know, like, let's just scroll randomly and then like this would be like what you would get first. How would you describe a customer as a stakeholder? Now, this question alludes enough to give you enough of an idea of where it appears in the textbook. Stakeholders, and then they each for 2 marks, right? 2 points. Now, the way that I like to tell students to approach, these are essentially exam type questions, right? The way that I like to tell students to approach these questions is look at the kind of grammar and the vocabulary that they use in the question, and then look at the mark allocation to give you an indication of how much detail you would need to give in order to answer the question. I'm probably going to cover similar topics when we get to exam prep, and maybe even when we do assignment 2. But look at how they word the question. How would you describe a customer as a stakeholder? Let me just increase the zoom a little bit so you can see better. How would you describe a customer as a stakeholder? So back when I was a student we don't talk about that, a long time ago, but I used to look for specific keywords in questions, and then this would like influence how I would, answer the question. So the keywords that I would look for was name, list, describe, elaborate, and sometimes they give a little bit more fancy keywords to mask what they're really trying to say, but these are the basic ones that you want to look out for. And then in the longer questions, they would say write an essay describing these, and then they would list some topics that you would need to look out for. But with that in mind, let's just look at at a glance, look at the grammar that they use of some of the questions. Briefly explain, right? What is the name of this framework, right? What is? So these are defined questions. So defined questions, list, name. These ones you would give points equal to the amount of things that they want you to give. They would say, define these 2 topics, list the 6 phases of something. You just put those down, and if it's for 5 marks, you would get the 5 points, right? But on the more complicated ones, like elaborate, briefly explain, discuss, these ones you would have to give more detail. But once again, look at the mark allocation. These are all for 2 marks. And the way this memo is presented, they generally say, if you listed 2 of, the module, 2 of the points in the model answer, then you would get the marks. So like I said, just these are the 2 fundamental things that you need when answering these kinds of questions. Look carefully at the grammar, read the question carefully, like everybody says, but look at the grammar and vocabulary that they're using. Look for keywords that sort of urge you to answer the question. List, name, describe, elaborate, briefly explain, write an essay, etc., etc. Idea finding, briefly explain idea finding. So here, it would be, depending on mark allocation, you would be able to, I just got a question here that says, when are we getting these results for assignment 1? I was informed that you would get them 30 days after assignment 1 has closed. I do think that is past the time, but I am not part of the marking staff, so I'm actually not able to answer this question. I will forward this to the lecturer, and if I get, actually it should be very soon. I mean, I would assume that the marks should be out before students go into assignment 1 so that they know how much they would need to prepare, but I wouldn't actually bank on that. There's been cases where assignment 2 has finished and then marks for assignment 1 are still not out yet. So I will pose a question tomorrow, or as soon as the stream goes off and I have power, we will see. Right. Moving on. Expanding on how to answer the questions, there's 2 more important things that you need to understand, except for, how to know what they want from you and how to know how much detail you need to give in order to get the marks. Like I said, these were all two marks, so you didn't need to write too much in each of the questions, but there was 47 of them, so you did have a considerable amount of content you need to get through. Now the next 2 points. 1, be sure to write your answers concisely and clearly. Use the memo as a base for your module answers if you don't know what this means. I think there's a message in the WhatsApp group. Let me just see. YouTube link, please. I've sent this. Yeah. Be sure to write your answers concisely and clearly and use the memo as a base for your module answers if you don't know what I mean. Obviously, when you're doing assignment 2, you're not going to have the memo. But what I mean is, if you were struggling to, write answers clearly, look, back when I was a student, the way that I used to think about this was, how would I write my answer in a way that it's easiest for the person who's marking my exam paper, assignment, essay, whatever? How would I write my answer in the way that's easiest for them to read it and just give me the marks? Essentially, how would I word my answer to make it look like I know what I'm talking about? I know exactly what in the textbook this question is asking me about, and I can provide the concepts in a way that's easy to understand that shows that I know what I'm talking about. So if you are struggling with that kind of wording, this starts to become a thing, It starts to become more complicated the later in your degree you get, especially in postgrad stuff. But look at the way that these memos, they're basically like a gold mine for understanding how exam processes work and how you can improve in answering exam level questions. Because look at the way the question is, like I won't go over this again. Look at the dialogue, the vocabulary used in the question, right? And then look at the answers. All of the answers they're bullet points, right? In the whole memo, they're all bullet points. And the reason for this is each one is broken up to give 1 mark. So that the markers know, okay, when I look at this guy's question, when I look at his question 3 and he gives me an answer, let's say we were talking about this. Business analysts as external consultants is often criticized, and explain why this is a case, right? So, fast forwarding, you need to understand which part in the textbook they're talking about, and then look at the mark allocation to understand why how much detail you would need to give. See, any 2 points mentioned, they put it right here. Page 5 of chapter 6. So when we're reading through your answer, you need to say, business analysts are, they criticized as external consultants because they have lack of accountability. You say why, or you word it in a different way, etc. But just use this as an indication for what we're looking for, is what I'm trying to say. And then try to structure your answer in a way that complements this. That's not to say that you have to write your answer in bullet form. You don't have to do that. It might even be better if you don't do that. But you need to structure your answer in a way that we can easily look over it and just say, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's got, we compared with a memo, say, okay, no, he's got these 2 points. You get the 2 marks, easy. Yes. And now the other thing is, this segues into write in your own words and don't copy the textbook. I've been with this module for 3 years. This is my 3rd year. And in previous years, I did offer to look, the assignments were more long question based, right? So students had a lot more trouble with the assignments than they did this year. But the trade-off was that I wasn't able to, in previous years, I did offer to look over students' assignments before they submitted, but now the whole submission process has changed. So I can't do that. So I don't know exactly where students are struggling. This adds to the fact that the marks aren't out yet. So I don't know exactly which questions gave you trouble. So it's a little bit tricky to try and provide review under that pretext, but yeah, I'm trying anyway. But write in your own words and don't copy the textbook. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because I don't know how many students just copy-pasted from the textbook this year. In previous years, it's been pretty bad. I've had to emphasize this so much. Don't copy the textbook. Write the answer in your own words. Please, it's not that difficult. I understand a lot of students, they do kind of leave things last minute. Looking at how many questions this is, if you didn't start this assignment early, you started, the weekend before the Sunday, you were busy with work, etc. You had a lot to get to, especially if you didn't pick up the textbook, you didn't know anything about this module until you started assignment 1. You had so much to get to. So much so that it might be a little bit tempting to just look at keywords in a question. Let's say, typical levels of strategy could be corporate strategy, business strategy, operational strategy. What does the business unit strategy focus on? And then you say, okay, I'm going to go look in chapter 3. This is the chapter about strategy analysis. And I'm going to talk about, what is business unit strategy? And then you open the textbook and you go there and you're like, okay, I'm just going to, change the words a little bit. They'll never know, right? They will never know. They know. I know. I've read this textbook so many times. I know when you're paraphrasing, and I know when you're copying the textbook. Please. Very good advice that I got when I was a student. When you need to answer questions that, you need to gather the information. You gather the theory in the textbook, and then you provide me with your concepts in your own words. This is what we're looking for when we're testing you. So the advice that I got was, you read through the phrases, the passages in the textbook. You take time to think about them. Not everybody learns in the same way. You can skip some of these phases. You can do it in a different way. But you think about them. You try to understand them. And then you close the textbook. You don't look at the textbook anymore. And then when you write your answer, you write your understanding in the way that you understand it. And then we will look at this and say, okay, he's trying, he understands, and we give him the marks. But if you just say, okay, I'm just going to paraphrase the textbook, change a little bit of things, nobody will know, I'll get the marks. I'm going to mark your paper and say, nah, you're plagiarizing. No, this is not right. You just parroted the answer. Anyway, okay. Just to recap, be sure to write your answers concisely and clearly, and write in your own words, and do not copy the textbook. That is probably that's the biggest tips that I can give you for the assignment, aside from how to approach, assignment 2. I have another section on that. We'll get to that in a little bit. There's just a little bit more on this specific assignment. Okay. Let me just check my notes. I talked about students having trouble with the due dates. If we make announcements talking about, the due date is 4 p.m., I don't think you have much, the phrase, you don't have a leg to stand on. If you send us an email saying, I didn't know, I assumed, please can you give me, I implore you, we cannot help you. Just please. I also understand that students realized once they missed the assignment deadline, that in the learning guide, it does indeed say that these assignments are compulsory for exam entrance. A follow-up announcement was made on this. It's the most recent one, I believe. No, the second most recent one. A follow-up announcement was made on this where they say they're not going to open assignment 1, but they do say that submission of either assignment 1 or assignment 2 grants you admission into the exams. This means that if you miss assignment 1 but submit or complete assignment 2, that you will be granted into, that's my dog in the back, by the way, that you will be granted admission to your final exam. So please complete assignment 2. Even if you have completed assignment 1, please complete assignment 2. They are both compulsory. This is why we say they're compulsory, so that students complete them. And also, this is kind of similar, but don't leave things for last minute. I'm also a very busy person myself. I do understand what it's like to have other commitments. Let's say you have a family, you're working a full-time job. I do understand that it is possible to be busy, and too busy to the point that you don't get around to things. But please, as a student, you need to budget your time. These assignments, they're made to take your time. They're made to test. They're made to take time to test that you understand, the coursework, so that you can prove that you know what's going on, and we can pass you, well, and whatever. Yes. Let me just see. We can't give extensions. We expect you to be on top of the announcements. Yes, I went over that. All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop talking about assignment 1 in particular here. I didn't go over the questions. In previous years, I have gone over every question in the assignment, but there's simply too many. I cannot think about it this way. There's 49 questions, each for 2 marks. I cannot talk about every single question and not make the session 3 hours long. We all have things to do. Let's not take forever. If you do, however, have problems with a specific question, please email me. Don't hesitate to email me. Even contact me on WhatsApp, anything. You say, I looked over the memo. I don't really understand how this answer answers this question. Then I'll say, okay, this is how it does. So please, if you have any kind of trouble with that, just please email me. All right. So the next section, let me just see how we are on time. 25 minutes. Okay. So the next section that I would like to go over is how to prepare for an assignment like this. So this is sort of like a retrospect part of the session, and also to give you insight into how you could go about preparing for assignment 2. And then lastly, we'll close off with a quick section, and mention again that this assignment is essentially like a mock exam. All right. So let's fast forward back to, May, before this assignment was opened, before you got scared for your life looking at these 49 questions, 1 week to do it, before you were sweating bullets, everything. Let's go back to that time. How would you have prepared for an assignment like this? Right? To be honest with you, the best way to prepare for this assignment, since it essentially is a mock exam, would be to prepare exam level notes. And this is actually, like, from an educator standpoint, it's good. It's very good. It's well done, because this gives you, an informal way for you to understand, for us to see, how you deal with these kinds of questions. And for you, it's to, get into the habit of answering these questions in an exam format, essentially. I mean, in the exam, you're not going to have a week. I don't think you'll have a week to get through the paper. It should be condensed into a 2 hours, 2-hour session. But more information on that when exams are made, public. Information is made public on them. But how would you prepare for an assignment like this? This assignment, going through it right now, as a memo, as after you have finished the assignment, it assumed that, especially taking into consideration that the questions were jumbled up in each student's respective instance of answering the assignments. It assumed that you had a pretty good grasp of understanding, the concepts in the textbook and which components of business analysis correspond to which chapters in the textbook. Like I said, if you left this assignment for last minute and then you opened up the assignment, on the Saturday, you had, just barely 14 hours to get through the whole thing. You had so much work to do that week. And you open this up, you didn't even touch the textbook. You open this up and they just say, okay, business analysis uses a wide range of techniques to investigate business areas and document findings. Name and explain at least 2 investigation techniques. Okay, this one is a little bit easier because they talk about investigation techniques, and that's the name of a chapter. It's chapter 5. Not the best example, but I'm just showing you how random it could be. Okay, let's say this was your first question. Let's say, okay, give at least 2 advantages of interviews. And you're like, excuse me, what are you talking? Which chapter does this correspond? I don't know what's going on. So see, this assignment was made deliberately to make you ask these questions. What are we talking about? Where are we in the story? Where are we in the story? So expect assignment 2 to be exactly the same thing. And with this in mind, counteract this by studying as if it were an exam. You don't have to go into, exam prep levels of stress, studying, intense review, all of that stuff. But you need to be up to date with the textbook to the point where they can bring up any chapter, any concept in chapter 8 to chapter 14, and you will be able to just say, okay, I know what they're talking about. I can then open the chapter, chapter 9, if it is chapter 9, and then navigate to that and then say, okay, this is what they're talking about. I'm able to answer. Right. So it's essentially just a mock exam is what I'm trying to say. It's a mock exam that you have a week to go through and you have access to the textbook to do. Also, don't copy each other. I went over don't copying textbooks and stuff, but it goes without saying, don't plagiarize other students. Don't copy answers. Don't share answers. Don't have a secret WhatsApp group where you say share answers. Don't do that. They'll figure it out. They'll figure it. It's not worth it. All right. Go through all the chapters carefully. Yes, I talked about this. Look at the resources provided to you. Yes, this is a good one. Before that, I will just say, set time aside. Once again, we're talking about how to prepare for an assignment like this, how to prepare for assignment 2. Set time aside. You have already tasted the pain that assignment 1 can bring to you if you haven't, prepared sufficiently. You haven't set enough time aside. 49 questions it's no joke. It's a lot. Make sure that you set, this week of June 11th, when this assignment 2 goes live, make sure that you set aside time for you to get through this assignment. You don't want to rush the questions. Take your time. Reference the textbook where you need to. See, July 11th to July 18th. Take your time. Take this I even want to say take this week off if you're working. Well, not the whole week, but like a few days. Set aside time. Another thing is, I like to emphasize this when students are talking about submitting exams and stuff, but I like to say submit early. If you're unaware, we have now moved to the new MyUnisa platform. Its name escapes me right now, but the old platform used to have a particular habit of crashing on due dates for assignments. So there always used to be this thing where students would all submit on the last day, 11 p.m. on the last day, super last minute. They would all submit, and then UNISA would just explode. And everybody would say, oh no, I need extension. I was ready to submit the, my UNISA blew up, send help. And then we would be like, how do we know for sure that you were ready to submit? But, hopefully that doesn't happen as frequently with this platform. But still, I would say, please try to finish early if you can. The reason why I say finish early is because you are allowed to ask the E-Tutor, myself, for help with this assignment. Did you know that? Nobody asked me for help. People are just like, I'm struggling. I'm like, that kind of doesn't answer the question. Approach me formally. Say, I won't know. I mean, like I said, everybody's textbook, everybody's assignments are instance-based. I won't know if you say, okay, I'm struggling with question 13, help me. I'm like, I don't know. I haven't seen, what does your question 13 say? Just say, okay, there's a question that says, you're talking about this chapter. Are they talking about this or are they talking about that? Then I'll clarify and I'll say, okay, no. If the question is worded like this, they said they're talking about this. So yes, like I said, start early. The benefits of starting early is you're able to ask for help from your E-Tutor and he can respond in time. I'm also a busy person. Don't assume I'm going to be there, waiting till the due date, 11 p.m., staring at my emails. Someone's going to ask for help. Nope, it's not how it works. I have no work hours. All right. Yes, so we will now navigate to, the E-Tutor page for this module. This is essentially the page of the site that I manage. I do have information on myself as well. It's already halfway through the year, more or less. Or just about. You can read the stuff in your own time. But the way that, the topic that we're still talking about now, the overarching topic is how to prepare for an assignment like this and how to prepare for assignment 2. Right. So, given that this is essentially a mock exam, right? I've said that quite a few times. I want to continue emphasizing that because that's essentially what it is. So, there are a set amount of information, that I've compiled about this module that was intended to be used as exam prep, actually. So once again, this is my E-Tutor site. It's called ICT2641. 22 is the year. And then you say Y and then 1E, right? If you press my modules, you'll see this, right? Well, you should. If you don't, there's a problem. So once again, come to my, the main site. Navigate down to the bottom. Usually this thing is closed. Open it, and then you'll see 4 panels. There might be more in the future. We'll see. But all of these are here to help you. All of these in particular are here to help you with exam level questions, except the discussion forums, not really. So I went over this in the orientation stream, but discussion forums, here, if you have problems with specific topics in the textbook, you want to know about assignments, etc., here's the place to ask questions. This is fairly self-explanatory, but these chapter slides that has been uploaded here, these are essentially PowerPoint slides covering every chapter in the textbook. So the way that you can use this to prepare for an exam is that a message? The way that you can use this to prepare for the exam is you use this as sort of a guide. Let's increase the zoomer. You use this as a guide so that you know which parts of the textbook are important, right? Because let's face it, the textbook it's very wordy. It's very dense, where the information is divulged in very great detail. And you don't need to know all of the detail to be able to give an answer of 2 marks, right? So this slides helps you in pinpointing areas of the textbook that may or may not be focused on in future exams or mock exams, in this case the assignment, I think I've emphasized that enough. So the last one is probably the most important. I don't know how to change the order of these, but the study material. So these are questions that I have comprised, I want to say the exam level questions, but I was a little bit nice in most of them. I didn't really make them scary and painful because I wanted students to learn from them. But essentially, let's just filter, by discussion. So it's now in numerical order. But these are, I've covered chapter 1 to chapter 9. So on each of these, you can just come here and just say, you click on chapter 2, right? And these, you will be presented with 10 tutorial questions, review questions that cover the corresponding chapters in somewhat exam level. You'll be presented with 5 short questions and then 5 long questions. And is this starting to look familiar? The mark allocations are a little bit more bigger than, generally speaking, more bigger than the way they were in the assignment and the way they are in the memo. But this starts to look very familiar to assignment 1, right? So doubling back to the topic that we're on right now, how to prepare for an assignment like this and how to prepare for assignment 2. Someone has essentially went through these chapters for you, right? And they have provided you with questions that are very similar or maybe similar to what may appear in assignment 2, right? And they have given some form of model answer. In retrospect, some of the answers that I have given you could be better. I have actually written some vague answers on purpose for them to be vague so that you can read up in the textbook and understand in your own terms what these topics are. And also, another thing that I'm going to do on purpose is not cover, please don't hurt me, but I'm not going to cover all of these before assignment 2 is done. I'll have to look at the schedule because personally, I feel like this is, have you ever heard the phrase tipping too much of the hand? It's a little bit too helpful because you could just come down to these ones, come down to the review questions, look over them and then say, okay, this answer is good enough. If you happen to find an answer that corresponds to something that an assignment asks you, you just say, wait. Wasn't this asked in a review question that the tutor compiled? And then you could come here and then, just paraphrase this answer, which is, again, the same problem with the textbook. So that's why I deliberately don't want to cover all of the chapters before assignment 2 is done, so that the students do feel the need to review on their own. This is what they call, there's a term for this, but yes. So essentially what I'm saying is that it's extremely helpful. So helpful that I don't want to give you more of it, is what I'm trying to say, kind of. But once again, when assignment 2 is done, I will proceed to submit questions for for all of the chapters in the textbook, excluding, I believe, chapter 13. That one is not covered in too much depth. And at the same time, I have been informed of a very good idea. Students said that, why don't you, comprise these into PDFs and then we can study offline. That is a very good idea. And I've been meaning to do that for a while. I've just been very busy. But definitely before the exam, I will have done something to that effect. Also reviewing some of the answers. I think some of them need touch-ups. And yes, let me just see if I've covered everything I want. If you do have questions, please ask me now as the time. We're just about wrapping up. 40 minutes seems just about right. Okay. Oh, yes. This assignment, there's even more that we can use, to help you. But like I said, I've been with the module 3 years. The assignment format in previous years was very different. You were given long questions. All of the questions were long questions, 20 marks. Each one would say, write 250 words. Write a memo for 250 words. I'm not exaggerating. Every question was like this. And there was about 7 questions or something. But I will ask permission from the lecturer on whether I can share these. I don't think I'll be able. no, I won't be allowed to share the papers, and it might also cause confusion because it's completely different. But I will ask permission on whether I'm able to share the review sessions. Hello, Robbie, how do you do? I will be able to share the review. Well, I'll ask the review sessions because I have done sessions like this in the past, and I was able to go into a little bit more detail because the questions were less vague and the sort of assignment format was more finite. So yes, essentially what I'm trying to say is if you do want more information on how you would be able to approach assignment level questions, I will try and make the previous year's assignment review sessions available to you so that you can see how the coursework can be asked in terms of long questions. I mean, it's unclear whether long questions will appear in the exam, but at this point, it's better to just be prepared for anything, right? Okay. I think that's just about it. I'm just trying to see if I've left anything out. As always, please email me for help. I was just wondering I've got a question here that says, I was just wondering on the dates for the final exams. Since these are year modules, does that mean that the exams would be dated earlier than the October-November exam period? I would not know this, actually. I am actually not sure that a lot of the lecturing staff does know the ballpark date. We do know that last year, I believe this was a year module as well, and there were a lot of interruptions, and the year kept extending, and then exams were given around November. When are we getting the results for assignment 1? Like I said earlier, I was informed that the assignment 1 results would be made available roughly 30 days after assignment 1 had closed, but I think we are past that date. So I'm not part of the marking staff, unfortunately. I'm not able to provide any insights, but I can pass your questions along to the lecturer, and I will get back to you on that. Last I heard, it was supposed to be 30 days, because I asked about the memo 3 weeks back, maybe, and then that's when I got the 30-day ballpark. Let's just see. Sorry, my bad. Just in review, I showed you how to navigate to the memo. We talked about the 49 questions. We talked about them being 2 mark each. You had a 1-week time limit. I expect this to be the same on assignment 2. I expect the formula and the way that you will, submit the questions to be the same, pretty much. So expect the same thing. And with that in mind, please rewind to the section where I talk about how to prepare for an assignment like this. And yes, questions appear out of order. We talked about this. The difficulty of the assignment was, aside from the content itself, obviously, was understanding essentially where in the textbook, where the concepts that they're talking about, because it was out of order. The questions were given to you out of order. Another comment here that says, sorry, so you said this exam last year was written in early November. It was November or December. My memory escapes me, but don't use that as an indication of how it might be this year, because we have not had any interruptions. So things might appear according to schedule. Yes, I think that's just going to be it. I think we are on time. I might have went a little bit over. I was going for 40 minutes. But yes, I hope that this session has been helpful to you. As always, I check my email every day. I check the discussion forums, both of the module site and my E-Tutor site, every day. There are discussion forums made here. So if you have any problems, anything whatsoever, and you don't necessarily want to contact me, you don't like email correspondence, you can use the forums. I do actually think that you can private message people on the MyUnisa platform. I don't know how this works. I haven't used it before. There's like a messaging feature or something. But you can use this. You can use WhatsApp. Just please, if you need help, especially with coursework, because the coursework is essentially like my forte. It's what I'm focused on the most. And if you do have problems with admin, the thing is, I'm not part of, the how to say, like the module management stuff, let's say. I'm not part of that, so I'm not able to, open up due dates if you miss due dates. I'm not able to do stuff like that. But what I can is I can provide, I can liaise with a lecturer and provide, pose questions to her in an important manner, and she'll get back to me timely. She usually does. And yes, all right. I hope that this session has been helpful. If you're watching and you missed, you're just joining now, you missed parts of the session. I believe the link does stay the same. It's just that YouTube needs some time to render the live stream as a whole video. So either by tomorrow or the following day, permanent links will be made, and I will, as always, upload a 480p, a low quality version of the live stream so that you can download it, study offline. I am aware that watching streams drains a lot of data if you don't have access to Wi-Fi. And yes, just trying to think if there's any last minute things, but I don't think so. All right. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and I will most likely schedule another one of these for after assignment 2 has been submitted. And once again, if you have any problems, don't hesitate to email me. My email is everywhere. It's in the description of this video even, I think. And yes, all right. That'll be it. This was Brandon Fick, the E-Tutor for ICT2641, and I hope that you have a good Tuesday evening. I will see you again.